Okay, class. Yes. Happy Thursday. Okay, we're gonna do a little review and refresh. All of you have your teams, correct?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Here, this is the NFL. Does anybody know what? Okay. Does anybody know what NFL stands for?
I know.
What?
National Football League.
National Football League, right?
That's what I was
The
saying.
NFL, like I've discussed, is made up of how many teams?
32.
32 teams. These are all 32 teams of the NFL. Okay? Now, you have the AFC and the
NFC.
What does AFC stand for? Everybody.
American Football Conference.
What does NFC stand for?
National Football Conference.
So these 32 teams are split in half. What's half of 32? 16. So there's 16 teams in the
AFC.
and there's 16 teams in the NFC, right? Furthermore than that, they break it down more. And they break it down by divisions. So we have 32 teams in all, 16 in the
AFC.
16 in the
NFC.
16 plus 16 or multiplication, 16 times 2, 32. Right? 16 plus 16 is the same as saying 16 times 2. Right. Okay. Now, after you get your conference, each of them are broken down into divisions. AFC North, East, South. Never eat soggy worms. Oh,
Soggy waffles.
never eat. I say never eat soggy worms. Never eat sour watermelon. Never eat soggy waffles.
2 hours later.
Never eat soggy pancakes or soggy ice cream.
Okay. But you're right. Never eat soggy pancakes. Okay. Now, with our divisions, they're split up by the directions, by the cardinal directions, by the compass, kind of like our tables, right? You have 4 divisions. Repeated addition, like we discussed. 4 plus equals
16.
4 plus equals
16.
Repeated addition. Who can give me the multiplication equation? 4 times 4 equals 16. Yesterday we learned about arrays. Don't you see an array here? Yeah. You could say the AFC is an array of 4 rows and 4 columns. And the NFC is an array of 4 rows and 4 columns, right? Here's a column, here's a row. What we're going to do today is when you get your computer, you're going to look up your team's schedule. And you're going, because there is a section where you write your team schedule where you're going to track your team's wins or losses. Now, if you look at the Dolphins schedule, count how many games there are.
31.
Dude, count not the team, count the games.
17.
There are 17 games. Every team, all of your teams will play 17 games. All of your teams in the regular season. Now, if they make it past the regular season and they go to the playoffs, they'll play more. But some of our teams won't make the playoffs. And we'll talk about that when we get there because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. What's your question?
What happens if another team joins the NFL?
It's a long process if a team joins the NFL, so they can't you can't just be like, hey, I have a team, I want to join the NFL, right? There's 32 teams. I don't see that changing for a while, but you never know. What happens when that happens? It's a good question. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, there's no other teams joining. Okay? Now, if your teams play 17 games, 6 of those games will come from people in your division. Like we talked about yesterday. Lucas, you are the Ravens. 2 of your games will be against the Bengals. 2 of your games will be against the Browns. 2 of your games will be against the Steelers. What's 2 plus 2 plus 2? 6. 6 out of your 17 games will be against
Actually, in the preseason.
Preseason doesn't matter.
But I actually lost to the Steelers 2 times.
Preseason doesn't matter. Sometimes teams can lose every single preseason game and then go on to win the Super Bowl. So preseason is just like warm-up practice. Get their feelers wet. Learn some new things. Okay, you always play the teams in your divisions twice. Then it's like, well, how do they decide who they play the other games? Like, how do they pick who they play? That's up to like the NFL gods.
No, it's called the bosses.
The bosses, right? They plan out this schedule depending on how you do. But know that 6 of your games will come from teams in your division. So the most important thing is your division, then your conference, then the entire NFL. You want to beat these teams in your division because you want to be the king of your division. You want to be number 1 in your division. Then you also want to beat the teams in your conference because you want to be the king of your conference and go to the Super Bowl. Okay? Any questions? Lucas.
What happens if like in the preseason, like I
Pause. Preseason doesn't
matter.
Keep going.
If like I win all the games that I play, does my team like get a reward or anything?
Does your team during preseason? No. Yes.
Like what if you win like 3 times?
Okay.
But the other 3 times you lose.
Then it makes it spicy, right? You'll notice, and as we go through the season, not like spicy, like, ooh, what's gonna happen spicy, right? If you beat the Bengals, but you also lose to the Bengals, and you beat the Browns, but you also lose to the Browns, and you beat the Steelers, but you also lose to the Steelers, then it's like kind of a race to who's gonna be the king. And then it depends on your other games that you play, right? So that's the great thing about the NFL is each game matters. Whereas in baseball, does anybody know about professional baseball? They play like 163 games. That's a lot of games, right? So not every single game really matters, but in the NFL, every game counts, except
The preseason.
yes.
So I'm questioning, for example, if the Bengals goes to the Super Bowl and I'm going against the Ravens.
Can the Bengals play the Ravens in the Super Bowl?
No.
Wait, pause. Sorry. Keep going.
What if my team wins? Do I get something or do I not?
What do you mean? If your team wins the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
You get the Super Bowl cup, don't you?
We'll talk about the Super Bowl when the Super Bowl comes.
Okay.
Because we're going to have a Super Bowl fiesta. But when it comes to the Super Bowl, it is the king of the AFC versus the king of the NFC.
What does
Yes.
fiesta mean?
Fiesta means
Party.
party. Yes.
Does one team in the division only qualify?
So, whoever at the end for the playoffs, and we're going to talk about this again once playoffs come because I'm going to show you those standings. Each week, it changes. Week 1, the Dolphins might be number 1 in their division. They might be the number 1. But if they lose 2 games in a row, they might drop to number 3 in their division, right? So, what was your question again? Yes. So, for the playoffs, there is going to be 1 team from each division that automatically goes. The number 1 team from each division automatically goes. The rest depends on how good their schedule is. Last year for the playoffs, the Niners went to the playoffs. The Rams went to the playoffs. The Bucks were in the playoffs. The Eagles were in the playoffs. The Cowboys were in the playoffs. The Lions were in the playoffs. The Packers were in the playoffs. The Chiefs were in the playoffs.
Because they won the Super Bowl.
The Texans were in the playoffs. The Dolphins were in the playoffs. The Bills were in the playoffs. The Ravens were in the playoffs. And I believe the Steelers were in the playoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I'm missing 1.
Were the Jaguars the Jets? No.
The Jets were not in the playoffs.
They failed.
Seahawks went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's always 7 from the NFC that make the playoffs and 7 from the AFC that make the
So
playoffs.
60.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 got disqualified. Yes.
What was the other one?
Were the Raiders in the playoffs? I don't remember. It might have been. I don't think it was the Bengals. It was the Browns.
Yes! My mom loves the Browns.
You could have drafted them.